Evening.
Extra tall version.
I don't think I have too much trouble hearing me. Is there a control on here if I want to turn it down? I'm just curious.
Turn it down. With her
Okay,
iPad.
we'll just see how it goes.
Okay.
I get to be the first. All right. It's 5:15. Let's get started. It's a nice turnout. I have a few comments I want to make. I limited it to 35 pages, so it shouldn't take more than 2 hours. Don't worry, we'll get you out of here. I want to point out this meeting was put together in order to meet with citizens who wanted to voice concerns and ask questions about their water bills. I know such citizens exist because a lot of them have made sure I know they exist and that they're concerned about their water bills. That would be hard to miss over the last few weeks. I want to thank everybody, both citizens and members of the staff, for being here this evening. With a little luck, next time we talk about the tax rate, the budget, or, and this is my personal favorite, street repair, we'll be able to get this same level of citizen involvement. It'd be great. Keep in mind that whatever else is going on here, this is an example of citizens being irritated about something that government is doing, demanding answers, and getting them, which is great. The other day, and here there was a press conference put on by Robert Hanna, the city manager, and when I was listening to that, sitting back there, I was struck by how many safeguards there seem to be in place involving the water bills and how we charge people and how we find out how much they've used. We rotate meter readers among routes. If the value of the meter reader inputs is higher or lower than the software thinks it should be, it asks the meter reader to re-enter those numbers as a double check. When meters are unreadable, the estimate is done by predetermined formula by the machine, not by somebody's best guess what they think it might be. What I decided then, when I heard all that, is we must have had these problems before, and these safeguards were put in because of that. And as it turns out, in discussions with Mr. Taylor, that's correct. We've had these issues before. And clearly, these safeguards were put in the system to try to prevent these problems in the future. And we're going to further refine the system after this, which, with a little bit of luck, we'll get it just absolutely perfect, and we'll never be having this discussion again. Somehow I doubt that, but we should shoot for it. Yesterday, Robert Hanna, James Childers, and myself followed a meter reader on his route while he was reading meters, and he read, in an hour and 15 minutes, he read 120 meters. And some of those meters he had to hunt for in tall, unmowed grass, dig for underneath piles of brush, so it wasn't smooth just going from one to the next one. There's been a lot of talk about the meter readers can't possibly be reading 40,000 meters a month, but watching somebody do over 100 an hour, or around 100 an hour, clearly, and it's easily mathematically solvable that they are able to read those meters, and they are reading the meters. Are mistakes made? Yes, sometimes there's mistakes made. Is every meter read? Is none of them ever get estimated? No, sometimes some of them are going to get estimated. If your meter box is full of bees, or it's flooded, or it can't be found, or there's cars parked on it, or any other of a number of issues, that's going to be estimated. And it's going to be estimated by a predetermined formula, not by what somebody just thinks you might have used. As far as the recent rash of high water bills, which I think is why most of you are here this evening, if there's a smoking gun, nobody's found it. In fact, I would wager at this point that if there was any one thing, or any 3 or 4 things, that staff could change or fix or adjust and make this go away, they would have done that by now. It would have been a lot easier. They would have done that 2 or 3 weeks ago. One last thing that I would like to point out before we start with a kind of a question and answer is I would like to remind everybody that a lot of money was spent securing and assuring water supplies during the drought. The The large majority of the needed work was financed through debt instruments, which means we'll be paying for it for a long time. That's going to show up on your water bills. It is on your water bills. It's a part of your water bill. It's factored in there. Having said that, if more revenue is needed for the water department, those needs will be addressed at public meetings and dealt with in the clear light of day. There is not now, nor will there be in the future, any plot to cheat any citizen through charging them for water they didn't use. We are not going to do that, and we're not doing it now. Also, and I just got this just before the meeting, I had asked for it. This is a printout of my personal water bill use records for the last few years. Now, I don't even have a sprinkler system. I live in a fully developed neighborhood. I have a pretty decent sized house on a decent sized lot, but it's nothing overly large or overly special. In fact, my house is valued below the median value of a house in Abilene, Texas. We water the yard by hand, impulse sprinklers that my wife puts out. She does a very good job with that. Just for instance, for a jump in water bill, last July, we used 4,000 gallons of water. And then in August, we used 10. It must have rained, although I don't remember last summer as being particularly rainy. But then in September, we jumped up to 36,000 gallons, which means in July, we probably used that water in July. But you see the big increase there. And we don't even have a sprinkler system, and we don't have a pool, and we don't have any kids at home. So that's a 26,000 gallon change, or 32, I think, from the 2 months before. And 36,000 gallons is not that much water. I have similar jumps all through the years. We pretty much every summer, we have months leading in where it's 4,000 gallons, which is kind of minimal. And then it goes up much, much higher in the summer. We use that water. I have checked my water meter. I have some plumbing of knowledge. I check for leaks. I do not dispute that we've used the water. Having said all that, as I said, this is primarily a meeting between city and public, and we would be glad to take any questions or address any topics that we'd like to be addressed. We're not going to get into, I had a request earlier today, we're not going to get into the weeds of the complete financing of the water department or anything like that. But we have a lot of upset citizens, and I think you people deserve to be heard. That's what we're here for. That's what we should do. And I can't think of any question you would ask regarding water usage right now that somebody in this room can't answer. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. No, I wouldn't call it a coincidence.
There's obviously some kind of common factor here for everybody in this room.
When y'all care to?
It can't be a coincidence that we're all sitting here for the same reason.
No. It's not a coincidence.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I think you've had number of watering days have changed. Now, some people may or may not have adjusted their meter. I don't know what people do with the water. Here's what I know, and here's what I've been telling people is that if your meter is accurate, right, the whole purpose of a meter is to register the flow of water from one end of it to the other, right? And so if the meter's accurate, I don't know what the customer did with the water. Really, I don't want to know. It's not my job to know. I don't need to be that intrusive in your life. But if it went through the meter, right, and the meter's accurate, the water was used. Now, how it was used, what it was used for, I don't know. But one of my frustrations is that I felt like we've tried to answer good questions from people, honest, heartfelt questions from people, and we've given them the answers, the factual answers that we see. It's not the answer they want to hear, right? And so I think some people choose not to listen. It's very easy to be angry at government. I'm angry at government too at times, and I'm a government employee. So I don't necessarily have a good answer for this. What I do know is I believe the fact that the meters are accurate, and if you think your meter's inaccurate, we'll test it. And if it's inaccurate, we'll have a discussion on what we owe you. You know, so far we haven't tested a single meter that hasn't been accurate.
I requested that. I have the email right here from the water, the utility billing. I requested that 5 days ago, and
Okay.
haven't heard any response on that. I'm sure it's because they're busy right now with
Right.
what's going on.
They're doing a lot of rereads right now.
Yeah, I mean, it just is very surprising to me if you look at my last 2 years, there's been a fluctuation between 3,000 and 7,000 gallons a month. Even at this exact same time last year, never has there been any jump between those numbers over that. And then all of a sudden in August, it jumps up to 23,000 gallons. I've had the house checked for leaks. I don't have a pool. I don't water my yard. You can tell my yard's brown. I don't water it. Except for the rain, it doesn't get anything. I don't have a garden. I don't have a pool. I don't have any water leaks.
Sure.
And there's no justifiable reason for us to jump from using between 3,000 and 7,000 gallons a month to 23,000 gallons. There's no explanation.
And those are, and we're looking at those. And there are, and let's be clear about this, there are gonna be some out there where maybe your meter is bad, and we'll find those. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Come to you next.
Are y'all gonna go and check the meters, or are you gonna send somebody else out? You said you went and checked 100 and some meters?
I watched the meter reader who does that for a living check
Okay,
120
from-
meters.
From the time of August the 15th to September the 13th, I went and checked my meter. I had to dig it out and clean it out, but I checked it. I only used 8 units, and you're saying I used 23. That's too big of a jump.
Have you already contacted the water department, and have they
I
told you they're
have
gonna check it?
contacted the water department over here. I don't have any leaks. We water our yard twice a week, but from 30 days to the next 30 days, we should be using the same amount of water.
It just depends how
Not
your sprinkler
less,
system is
not
set up.
less. In the month of August, we were out of town. And when things come about for people doing the understand, I want to ask the question, how many of y'all, I'm probably going to be booed out of here, but I'm going to stand for right.
I think being
When-
booed out of here is reserved for me tonight. So.
If you're a Christian, you're going to do the right thing.
And we are gonna do the right thing.
Then you need to satisfy these
Well,
people in here.
the right thing-
The right thing is to make adjustment for these people. This lady here, myself, I have not used that many uses on my water. I have not, because if I used it last month, I'm using the same amount of water this month, and I'm 15 units less. You know, whatever y'all are planning on doing, if you need a raise or something like this, then y'all do this. But this is unheard of.
The-
Would it be helpful at all if we shared the podium? I think that several of us have some statements prepared and
Yeah.
some research.
We've got a
findings.
mic right there.
We've got a mic, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we share that?
Well,
Would you like to go first? I know he's got some research
I'd-
prepared that we'd like to present.
But if we're gonna get into a long one, let's let this lady speak. She's had her hand up for a while.
Well, it's a bit of a speech, but it's more of a question in the end. My original concern with this, and I think a lot of people's concern, Mr. Hanna, I've been emailing with you. My name is Chaley Allen. I am honestly not here to say that I didn't use the amount of water that I was billed for. I don't actually believe that. What I believe is that my meter is not being read in a timely manner on a monthly basis. And that is because of some information that I've received from the city that is entirely too convenient for that not to be the case. When I first got my bill for August, it was exceptionally large. Now, last year, my bill for August was exceptionally large, too. We had installed new sod last year. So, and in that year, we had moved into our house. So we did. We overwatered last year. I paid that bill without question because I knew I had used that water. This year, we have set our sprinkler system. It's been running the exact same amount the entire summer. We were billed for 3 units in June, 38 units in July, and 67 units in August. So that's a 22% increase, or it increased by 22 times from June to August. And that normally I'm a reasonable person. If I use that amount of water, I need to pay for it. The problem with that is the tier system, that if I have been using higher amounts of water all along, it would have been better for me to have been charged all along, so that way I'm not in a higher tier. Now, what I did was I called the city and I asked for the dates my meter was read. The person on the phone said, sure, I will email that to you. She was very nice, and I got an email with what they told me were the dates my meter was read within an hour. I got those dates. I started looking at it, and for this year I've had 3 exceptionally high bills. One was for April, one was for June, one was for July, and one was for August. Those 3 months, the list I got from her said that my meter had been read on a Saturday or a Sunday. And then I had confirmed that there is no meters being read on a Saturday or Sunday. Mr. Hanna, you know I emailed you about this.
That's right.
And then I was sent another readout saying that information I was given from the city when I requested it was completely meaningless, and that those dates were irrelevant, that they were just computer generated. And I'm sorry, but that's too convenient for me. As you know, I'm an attorney. If this were something in a court of law, I promise you no jury would buy that. There's just not a case that they would buy it. So then I was given what is supposed to be the corrected dates, and of course they all fall on a weekday. I'm not here really to obtain another answer from you, because I know what your answer is going to be. Mr. Hanna, I want to be clear. I am not specifically calling you a liar. I don't know what is going on. I don't know who is lying. I know there is an issue. I can't prove it though, because I'm not in control of the information. If I had the ability to go to a different water source, obviously I would go to a different water source. If I had the ability to go and evaluate the computer system myself and figure all of this out, I certainly would. I'm just not granted those benefits. So I'm forced to take your word for it. At this point, that's all I'm left with. I'm here simply to speak my piece, to let you know that this is not right. I will be keeping up with my meter from now on. I know that my usage did not change. We didn't adopt 10 new kids that have started taking 30-minute showers a day. We didn't change our watering system. We had a plumber come out. We paid a plumber to come out and show us our meter is not running when there is nothing on. We don't have a leak. It's just, you're asking me to believe you. At this point, I don't have any other choice. So I don't even know what the answer is. Oh, okay. My question is, I will get to my question. What it is now is, what documentation do you have to show that these were the actual read dates?
So the way that works, and correct my terminology was wrong, it's Route Star is the program. Okay, so the meter readers walk around with their handheld units, right? And they are little computer devices, right? And they have the dates in them. And when they enter that read, that particular time and date of that read is entered along with that input. So when the meter reader goes and lift up the hatch, and they've got a little rubber grommet on the end of it that sometimes they scrub off just because there's dirt on the dial. There's dirt on the little bezel. That can't always read it clearly. So they enter that into the machine. It timestamps it. Then that goes to the route. Then they download that information to the Route Star. That software is a Route Star software. It gets downloaded into the system. That gets converted over to the billing system, which is a completely different software. That download date, right, is a computer. It gets auto-populated in the system when they sync the mothership, so to speak. But the individual read date, that stays the same. That doesn't change. That is the good date. So it's unfortunate that the person who you talked to at the billing office said this is your, by God, absolute read date, because that's really not what they're supposed to say. They're supposed to say it's between this date range.
Pardon my interruption, but that's what I believe you said in the last news conference, was that we can request our meter read dates from the city and
Yeah.
they can give them to us.
Yeah, and if you let me finish, I'll get there. So what we have realized is that some people in the billing office are not giving the range or saying that's their absolute date. We have the absolute date. It's in a different system, and it's not easily accessible because we have to pull up the actual individual log tables to get it. We have that. What we're trying to do, let me finish, please.
I just want to ask a quick question in between.
Sure.
What's the actual date, or you're saying is, and you can't pull it up. What the hell's going on here?
Well, so I'm trying to explain what we're doing to fix the problem, okay?
I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand.
Well, let's hopefully listen to each other and we'll get there. So what I'm trying to say is this, is that right now, the information that the customer service representative sees is an approximation of when your meter was read. It's not the actual date. It's in a completely different system. They don't have access to that. So when you call up and say, when was my meter read? They should be saying between such and such a date, right? The other information, the actual read date, is in a separate system. Now, what we're trying to do, and we're visiting with our software vendors to do this, is to have that information pulled over, right? So it's on your bill. When you get your bill, it'll say my meter was read on such and such a date.
I want to interrupt for a second here. I mentioned all the safeguards and the improvements that we'll undoubtedly be making. This is one of them. You pointed out that's a problem, and you pointed it out. You're correct that the read date should be easily accessible. This is a flaw in the system, and we're going to fix it.
We're working to get it fixed.
We,
Yeah.
A low caliber of reading, who has checked the software to make sure there's not a problem in the software billing?
Yeah,
You can put everything can be a problem.
it can, and we haven't seen any problems.
So, like, when was the last time the software was updated? 10 years ago?
No, Yeah.
I mean, it can't even put out a date when the meter's read?
no, that's not what I said.
But, well, obviously, it's not programmed to do that.
That's not what I said either. It's just not, it doesn't,
Because you're gonna get it.
it doesn't have that data in the system at all. It doesn't pull that data over from the meter reading software. Absolutely, yeah.
The programmer was told to put that into the program?
Man, what
Well,
I'm trying to
again-
tell you is that we're going to trying to make that happen.
yeah.
Right.
Again, this has shown the need to do that.
Yeah.
And we're going to change it.
The fact that the problem is either with the meters or with the software.
No,
Because everywhere I've been in Abilene, and I've been all over, I've been to grocery stores, I've been to funerals, I've been to churches, I've been everywhere. And every time I bring up the issue of the water, people look at me and go, "Oh my God, I thought it was me." "Oh, it happened to you too?" And I said, "Yes, and I'm going to a meeting." But I have yet to come across anybody that is not outraged. And there are thousands upon thousands of people in our city.
Well, this is
and
not
this
just-
goes all the way to ACU Hill, back to the far south side. So there is a big problem, and this business of we're just overwatering or we've got a leak is just, the law of probability comes in. It can't happen. It's unrealistic.
Well, it's not just Abilene. It's the communities surrounding us too.
So now
that's across the state of Texas. If you call it the cities, they'll tell you that they're
Well-
having customer service too.
we're talking about
Understand
the
that,
city of Abilene, and where was all of this
Bruce,
preparation come
I
from?
think this lady over here was next.
Oh, I need to be cut off?
Not you. I was
No.
talking to Bruce. No.
No one's. If
We're
you
not
have
cutting
more to
you off.
say. I mean, we're not trying to cut you off.
Well, it just seems like there's a problem, and nobody wants to really get to the end of it, because this is just too many people.
Oh, believe me, if
Just too many people.
we
for
all
it to be
we
illegal.
all want to get to the end of this, no question about it.
Yeah, but you know what? If it happens, I'll be really amazed. Because I see a lot of people getting, I see some people getting credits because they did pay $1,000 to get a plumbing, and they're getting their bills reduced. Now,
Yeah.
why isn't everybody getting?
So let me answer that question. I can't talk about individual accounts. There's more to that story than what was reported. I can't get into her individual account by law, and I'm not going to. But there is always two sides to a story, and the media has not done a fair job, frankly, of reporting the other side of the facts. And that's you can ask them why. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am, you've been patient. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'd actually like to pass mine back here where we have some research.
All right.
Okay. My name is Guy Rosser. For the meeting, okay. My name's Guy Rosser, and Bruce, hey, I thank you for being here. I guess you're the only city councilman here.
Well, thanks.
No,
No,
there's-
there's
Is that right?
there's a couple
there's
others.
two.
So you're here. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here and listening to us. Evidently, a lot of people are angry. There's no need to be angry. I don't believe that the city's trying to pull anything. I think there's a big misunderstanding, though. I think the water meters work fine. They work like they're supposed to. They read the water that goes through them. Our problem is in our meter readers. There's not a person in Abilene that believes that the number of meter readers we have can cover Abilene every single month. That doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me that they can't. And I understand then we have to go through process of estimation. probably even guesstimation, even though you've said that doesn't exist. We do have guesstimation. And we have some people here that can prove it in their bills, that it is being guesstimated. Because there's no way that you wouldn't have alerted or had one of 0 to 40 codes if it was an estimation. So there is guesstimation going on. I don't even mind that. Guesstimation's fine. It's just that at some point, when the meter is actually read, then there's a correction value. And when that correction is thrown in, because we have a tiered system, and my ignorance, I've lived here, born and raised here, I didn't know we had a tiered system. But because we have a tiered system and they get a correction reading, that correction reading throws it up into a higher tier. What alerts these people is they look at their bill. They probably never looked at how much water they use, ever. They look at the dollar amount on that bill. It has to fit their budget. So all of a sudden, they're paying tier 3 price when they never have before, possibly because of a correction that was made on a guesstimation. So you get this alarm here that people are paying too much money. So my belief is it's fine. Have guesstimation, have estimation, have corrections, but you can't have guesstimation and a tiered system at the same time. They can't exist. You have to pay the same amount. So one of the questions I had asked was, how much money does it cost to treat and deliver 1,000 gallons of water? Does it cost more than to deliver that same 1,000 gallons, even if it's 50,000 gallons? No, it doesn't. It costs the same to develop and purify and deliver 1,000 gallons of water. So I don't see a reason for a rate increase. We should be paying the same no matter what we're using. Your penalty comes in the fact that if you use double the amount, you pay double the bill. But the way we've got it set up with this tier system, it's punitive. And in California now, they're in a horrible drought, and their courts have just ruled that a tiered system is unconstitutional because a municipality cannot charge more than it costs for the water to be produced. So it's out. Now, I don't know if that applies in Texas, but in Round Rock, for example, Round Rock has a tiered system. They only run their tiered system from April to October when they want people to conserve water. The rest of the time, everyone's on tier 1 paying the lowest, and their tier 1 is lower than our tier 1 is, and we're fixing to go up on our tier 1. They also, their 3 tiers that they have will fit within our our 3 tiers will fit in their first tier. So our tier is too low. It's ridiculous to think that we can keep Abilene beautiful, that we can improve Abilene, we can have beautiful homes, and we start punishing people at 7,000 gallons. So we can't do that. You can't have both systems. Now, you could have a tiered system if you'll go like Round Rock and go to a smart meter system. They have smart meter with smart reader time readout. So a person can look and see what they use today. Well, with that kind of meter, then you fairly could say now we can have a tiered system, even though I still don't believe in a tiered system. So what I think you're doing is punishing the citizens of Abilene. Planning and zoning. A business comes in, they want to build a building. They have to put in X number of trees, shrubs, lawns in order to get their plan passed. Then they're punished when they water the lawn to take care of it. So hardworking people here, couples, they buy a home, they invest in Abilene, they want to have a nice yard. They water their yard, and then they get a bill. First summer we've had without a drought, and they're punished because they got to water their yard for once. It's green, okay? So they're upset, and that's why people are upset. I don't believe you're pulling anything, but I do believe we're not reading the meters, and we have proof of it. They're being guesstimated. They're not even being through the process of estimation. They're being guesstimated.
So I guess I'd say I'd love to visit with those people that feel like the meters have been guesstimated. I really would, and I'm not going to do that.
Okay, you can't have a 0 reading for a month that wasn't guesstimated.
Hang on. I'd like to visit with those people. I'm not going to do it today, but come see me. The other thing is that the Texas Water Development Board has long encouraged people and cities as part of their drought contingency plan to have tiered rates. The whole concept is, and Midland adopted this strategy, by the way. They couldn't get their customers to conserve water, so they just raised the holy heck out of the rates. And finally people stopped watering because they couldn't afford the bill. So that is the whole point of a tiered structure, is water conservation.
Yeah. If we conserve water, I wish we'd just stay on our once a week
Sure.
during your time, and let's enforce that.
So,
but let's don't penalize it, and let's don't penalize a business that uses water as their primary source.
And that's a policy discussion, and I can't help you there. That's above my pay grade. It may very well be.
There's a guesstimation, there's a correction, it shoves them up in the tier, and they're paying more than
So-
they ever paid.
So let me say this last comment about guesstimation, right? I wanted to find something. I really, I don't go through life trying to piss off citizens. That's really no way to live one's life, okay? But I have not found anything that indicates we've guesstimated or had erroneous estimations taking place, or a whole bunch of estimations taking place. I just haven't seen it. The data's not present.
What side of town did you go and check, read those meters?
North side,
On where?
north side,
Where about on the north side?
on the hill.
On the hill? You should have come on further west, because guesstimation is over there.
I have some
And
examples of
wouldn't-
guesstimations as well.
I wouldn't say anything. I've come to this meeting with an open mind and everything. But when you come in here with these flowery words and all this and talking, you're not telling the truth, because if you tell the truth, you wouldn't have a tremble in your voice. You would stand there back-footed and say what it needs to be. But it's not right for what y'all are doing.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just. since
I'm
we're on
going to
the
make one
topic of-
comment here.
Go ahead.
I am telling the truth. Okay.
I am
I
too.
knew that I was going to be shredded for putting this meeting together here and being in front of people.
I want to just take a minute to applaud you, because you have been responsive on every email that I have sent you, every email that any of these ladies have sent you. You've been forefront when others went silent, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate
you.
you stepping up to put this meeting together. It's something we wanted and we're going to ask for, and you beat us to it. So I'm glad you did it. I've got a couple of thoughts on guesstimation. I understand the estimating situation. I listened to that press conference a dozen times, and I tried to make sense of it. I think there are some legitimate estimating things happening. I think there's some that we would consider a guesstimate, just because I don't want to call it an estimation. It's not a trackable estimate. So my husband and I live alone. We have no kids, okay? And he's gone a lot. So it's me and my 2 dogs, and they don't drink a lot, I promise. So I was billed for 69,000 gallons. 69,000 gallons. And I thought, oh my gosh, we have a major leak. Our house is sinking. Something's happening. Okay, so that was up from 15,000. We did. We used a lot. We've been landscaping. We're happy. We're like, this is a green yard, and we're great about that. That's great. So my bill went from 138 to 487. I know my sprinkler runs on a timer. I've said this on the news. You've heard it before. I've emailed you about it. Nothing changed in our routine. So I know in my heart usage didn't change. Okay, so I went out and looked at my meter, because I thought, where is my meter? I don't even know where my meter is. Let's look at this thing. So I opened it up, and I found that I was overbilled for 20,000 gallons. So 49,000 is still super high. So my bill, after it was adjusted, is more than double, but better than quadruple. Okay. So we talked about this. 20,000 gallons more, still super high. So in your press conference, you had talked about it should alert the meter reader something's maybe wrong here, and it would have made them confirm it. So I'm thinking then after that, and we've talked about that in an email, yes, it would have been confirmed at that amount. So a meter reader had to look at my meter, which is in a paved alley, unobstructed, there are no big dogs or grass, nothing, and misread it twice. And I understand there's human error, and I feel bad for the meter readers. This is a bad position to be put in. They've been put in an impossible job in my book. I couldn't do it. So if that's true, and it was looked at twice before they could move forward, 20,000 is a lot to look at twice and misread if it was truly looked at. And then I looked at my history. In December, we used zero water usage at all. I had guests. We actually had family staying, so it went from the 2 of us to about 6 of us. I was cooking and doing a lot more laundry, and my bill showed a 0 usage. How does that happen? Unless in October or November I was overcharged again and didn't catch it. And then what tier did that put me in possibly? I don't know, because back then I was unaware of the problem. So I went from 0, so that is a red flag to me on my history, to then 69,000, which was really 49,000, which is another red flag. Okay, let's look at last August. Like you said, I looked at my history. Let's compare. Not anywhere close to 49,000, and it is just 2 of us. And yes, we water. It's on a timer. So my husband and I sat out there and we watched our timer and made sure it ran for the right amount and the exact day, and it ran the same. We haven't changed it. So that's my guessing and playing catch up. We kept getting stuck on that. How else is it possible? Usage, but that's not it. That's not it. And so that's just examples of two different misreads that I have been able to track in 9 months. So if they're really getting out there and reading them, you know, and I'm with, yeah, he's my dad. I'm with him on this tier system. I think all of us in this room are. If you read my meter once a year, I wouldn't care if it was a flat rate, because then I'm just paying for the usage. It doesn't matter when it was read. But this is penalizing. I can't even track in my history. Did you misread it back then when I wasn't watching you? And now I'm being, at what tier did I get penalized? And so I got a credit in December. Was that credited at that higher tier rate? I don't know. And honestly, for the council members sitting here, I'd like you to reconsider the vote on the increase in October. It's probably an impossibility. But please, during this time, don't raise them again. Not until we have answers.
So in their emails, I did say, yes, we make mistakes from time to time. And clearly, I think my email to you was, clearly we missed it that time, right? So I'm not suggesting that we're perfect. I'm not. I know we make mistakes. What I am saying is that I haven't found evidence that we have meter readers that are going to Whataburger instead of walking the routes and reading the meters. I know. And I haven't found evidence of them just making numbers up either. And they can read that number of meters. They absolutely can. And what we have here is a situation where you've got a high bill. It's unexpected. Totally get that. My bill was higher than I thought it ought to be too. But I looked at the meter and the read was right. I had used, by the time I got the bill, I had used more water on the meter than what the bill had said my consumption was. So clearly it was right. If the meter was less, there was a big problem, right? So yeah, and there's a problem with yours. But when we looked at the system, we found 194 people that may have been estimated.
That's estimated that you can track. That's in the system.
That's correct. And so the other way of doing it, either we have that many misreads, which I just don't believe, right? Because I just don't believe it, or all the meters decided not to function that month. I don't know. I'm as perplexed by this as you are, but I do know if the meter's accurate, the water's gone through it, and it's worked. Unless we've misread it. In this case, we did. You know.
What would you say then to a zero reading in December? What happened prior to that would create a zero?
So I don't know. I know we bill in a whole 1,000-gallon increments. Maybe used less than 1,000. I really don't know. Yeah, and again, I don't know. I don't know. Yes. Sure.
Hi, my name is Shelley Chorn, and I'm here for actually numerous reasons. And some of you may or may not know that we are set to have another increase. Our lakes are full. I understand that we need to conserve water. Please understand I'm saying I understand that. However, my home flooded last summer in this town on Sylvan Drive. The creeks were not cleaned out. The creeks have still not been cleaned out. And now we are financially discouraging citizens to water or use water. While I understand we need to conserve, we are going into our wetter months and months that we tend to not use as much water. I am a citizen that has been in this town since I was 8 years old, and I have watched this city flood in different ways. I am begging the council members, please go back and look at what we're doing, because we should have a tiered system, if we have one, that is set up and is based upon our lake levels. We are going to flood. And we traditionally get more rain September, October. We got 9 inches of rain the night that my house flooded. I had 5 minutes notice. I had 4 inches of water in my home, and 4 foot and below had to be completely torn out. And so every time it rains, I go into panic attack. And you guys can sit here, and I understand, and my water bill was double, and I'm not disputing that we used it. But when you hit people in the pocketbooks and it stings, they're going to stop. They will. But the bad part about it is for citizens who aren't watering, and they're, say I have 5 kids, I don't, but say I have 5 kids. They're 10 to 16, 18 years old. They're in athletics. They shower 2 or 3 times a day. I can't tell my kids not to shower because I don't want them to go to bed dirty. I mean, water is something you have to use. And when you hit people so harshly the way they've been hit, then they make a choice. Is it water or is it groceries? And that's where we're at so many different levels that this is a negative impact on our city. And I've worked with families that are low income, and even though they're low income, that does not mean that they necessarily fall under that 8,000 gallons a month. And how does a mom choose to pay her water bill or buy groceries for her kids? And when we had our first increase, I know it probably wasn't meant to hit this way, but it's my understanding it hit in August. And that is when we're buying school supplies and getting our kids ready for school. The next increase, my understanding, is November. It's right before Christmas. I understand that these decisions were probably made long before we got a lot of rain. But I would just beg of you, please go back and reconsider this. Please. On so many levels.
I'd like to, the tiered system has come up repeatedly, and Dr. Rosser and I have already had this conversation by email. A different way you could look at the tiered system, and this is the way I look at it, is we're not so much punishing people that use more water as we're being as easy on low-income people as we can.
That's not right, because low-income people still may use more than 8,000 gallons of water a month. That is completely not inaccurate, and that's discrimination. That's a lawsuit for the city.
That first tier is 6,000, not
Okay,
8,000.
I'm sorry, but that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Absolute lawsuit. Discrimination is against the law. And if you're economically discriminating, that's against the law too. And I was really trying to come in here and be nice and not be ugly. But I called the city the day my home flooded. I called and asked for them to come and mark our street so people would not come over and push water into our home. No one ever came out. I was assured they would. I called twice. They never did. More water was pushed into my home. I took pictures of the creek 3 days after the flood. There was brush everywhere, and I'm not talking brush hanging, brush rooted into the creeks. And we're being billed every month for creek cleanout, and I sit down at my dining room table with Mr. Rice. We've had long discussions. And it's my understanding that we're fixing to go into a $200,000 study to decide where we're going to clean out the creeks. Why?
No, that's not what that's
Well, why are we paying somebody $200,000? We can't even figure out how to read our meters. Why are we've got to pull back and reevaluate how we're spending money. And I understand this, please, and I did forget to say something before I started. I want to say thank you for the people that work for the city, because you guys have got the brunt force of everyone being angry, and you guys were not the ones that necessarily made the decision to increase on those tiers. The poor women that answer those phones when you call, when I called, I said, please understand, I know that you didn't do this. But I want to say, how many council members had sit and taken those phone calls and heard from the citizens?
I get plenty of phone calls.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, like, go into the office, customer service, sit, and I understand you have jobs. I do. But when you choose to be an elected official,
Everybody in here has access to my cell phone number.
Okay.
Everybody in Abilene has access
Well,
to my cell phone number, and a lot of them use it.
I would just hope, and some people may not know how to get your cell phone number. For instance, I'm not
Just-
even going
just
to
call the number on the
example.
website.
The example I was going to use, I'm not going to use because the person I was going to use would probably be upset. But some people don't even know how to use their phones, their smartphones, in an easy way. So when we say, well, you can find it this way or on the website, some people are not able to navigate technology as easy as, I mean, I'll say when I graduated from college in '99, that was right on the curb of internet. Okay.
Well, I'm right there with you.
Okay. So, I mean, we're considered old, and anybody below that age, I'm going to just tell the truth. It's hard unless you've been in a job where you utilize computers and the internet. It doesn't come easy because it wasn't something that was taught. But I don't think it's right to have this system built and we're saying conserve, and I understand that, but I will reiterate again, our lakes are full. Lake Abilene is full, and when it rains and Lake Abilene is full, it pushes that water into our city. When that water is in our city and our creeks are already full and we have a 7-inch rain, where is that water going to go? I can tell you, in my house. I'm sorry. I will say I was trying to include everyone in what is going on. I'm sorry. I waited a long time to talk.
Appreciate your comments, man.
This gentleman back here had his hand up for quite some time.
I just want somebody to explain to me about a bill. I have gone back 19 months, added up the water bill. The average usage has been 7,600 gallons if you average out the 19 months. And the bill has been $112.20 averaged out. This last bill, they said that we used 190,000 gallons of water, and we were charged nearly $1,300. So I called the city, and they've been very nice, don't get me wrong. And she said, we'll reread it. So they reread the meter and said, oh, no, we're correct. What we show is correct on the meter. And I said, okay, then I will call Midway. They came out and did the assessment. We have no leaks. Our sprinkler system, you have to turn on and off. So it's not the sprinkler system. They tested that. So then I said, okay, let's recheck the meter. So they checked the meter, and they called back today and said, oh, yes, your meter is wrong. We've been undercharging you. So I want to know, how could one person, elderly man, use over 6,000 gallons a day for a month and no leak? I mean, you could grow rice in the front yard at that amount of water. The city has been nice, but then they just say, well, it's almost an insult to me, saying, well, that's what it is. It has to be correct. It can't be correct because there would be water standing at 190,000 gallons in 1 month.
So I'd be happy to visit with you about your bill and those questions. Sure, but I'm not going to do it in a public forum.
No, I understand,
But yeah, I mean, so let's talk about your bill. Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Yep.
And let's reiterate something. Nobody's denying that there's some mistakes. There's 40,000 meters. There's going to be some mistakes. You have 40,000. So, no. And we're.
Got a letter that she had to mow her back alley because they could not read the meter.
That's right.
Okay. I went over there and mowed it, and mowed my next door neighbors too. And I was there. They passed through their meter. They didn't even read it. They didn't even read mine. I got 2 meters. One is unavailable, and one is used. She didn't even open them, but she opened the rest of them.
So just out of curiosity, the meters, the ones you're talking about that got passed by, are they on the same side of the alley?
I don't know how in the world she missed it. I got it colored blue.
Well, the reason I ask that is because looking at the meter reading routes, and actually Rodney Taylor could probably answer this better, but I witnessed this very thing. On some of the routes, they go down one side of the alley and they read everything along that side, and then they go read maybe other meters going through another alley and then come back and get the ones on the next side. In other places, they crisscross, and I'm assuming that's for efficiency. In fact,
She was gonna come back, but she never did come back. She went to the next street.
in fact, I think it would be a good time to get somebody to talk about meter reading. Now, again, there's been a lot of discussion here that the meter readers can't read the meters. They can read the meters. They can get to all the meters. They can read the meters. If
My mail can get to my mailbox, how come the meter reader can't get to my meter? It's right beside it. I checked mine and grass is broke up, so when was the last time somebody pulled the cover off of mine? Water main, my grass was up, my neighbor, the same thing, called the water department.
Yeah.
Exclamation, it was not, that cover had not been moved from my dad.
So there's probably nothing I'm going to be able to tell you that's going to convince you that we read the meters.
Are you gonna be a fellow? You said you were all of the exclamations.
Oh,
You said you're gonna be a fellow. Now, are you gonna be prepared if there are 100 or more of us pop up in your office?
Uh-oh.
You said you would be a fellow.
sir, if you want to meet with me, I'd be happy to meet with you.
That's what
Yeah.
you do. And
Sure.
probably a whole lot of other exclamations.
Sure.
I think we'd all like some clarification just on exactly how you allege that the tier system benefits lower income.
Oh, excellent. Good. I'm glad. I'd love to revisit that.
Well,
Okay.
can I ask a question about the tiers? It's very interesting to me, and I was not aware anything about tiers. I'm like the common person. I get my bill. If it's close to what I think I've used, I pay it. I'm okay with that. But once you are pushed into a different tier, how do you determine if you hang in that same tier, if you come back to a lower tier? Is there a system that says, okay, you're using a lower level now, so you're going back to 1? Or once I'm in tier 3, I stay there? How does this
question.
tier system work?
Do you want to explain that? You want me to?
No, I'll let you get that one.
Okay, so it depends on what your usage is by month. So if you only used 5,000 gallons in 1 month, you'd be in tier 1. If you use 10,000 gallons in the second month, 6,000 of those 6,999 of those gallons would be in tier 1, and the remainder, right, between the difference between that and 10,000 gallons would be in tier 2. So it's kind of like income taxes, right? You tax, it's a progressive tax system. It's a progressive tier system. So you only build, if you use 16,000 gallons, you'd be 6,999,000 gallons would be tier 1. The difference between 16 and that would be tier 2, and then you might have one build unit in tier 3 because I think 16,000 is the tier 3 limit. Does that answer your question? And so it doesn't stick with you from month to month. Mm-mm. Every month. Yeah, but month to month will determine, your consumption will determine what tier you're in. So you don't get stuck in tier 3 and you're there forever. If you go back down the next month, you go back down.
It took a whole page of the newspaper to explain how the tier system was going to be used. Almost a whole page of the newspaper.
I didn't write the article. I didn't even read the article. So
But again, how does that benefit?
Okay.
You didn't know anymore after you read it?
I didn't read the article. I'm sorry, I didn't write the article.
Back to that question about what I said about benefiting low-income people. If you are, and this is what we all think about, this is what we all talk about, let's talk about, or picture an elderly person, fixed income, costs have been rising through the years, they're having to be very frugal. And there are a lot of those people out there, and they're not just elderly, there's lots of people that, month to month is tough. Well, watering pretty much is what would put you into tier 2. If you're not watering, if you're saving the money on watering, you're in tier 1, you're subject to lower rates. That is a real benefit. I hear from a lot of those people when we're talking about water rates.
Because 6,000 gallons is so low that if you have any children at all, you're way out of your.
I have a friend that has 3 children,
Where are they?
normal size house.
I haven't met any of those people.
Well, I have.
Why is there a need to
You want to take that?
Yeah, so the previous rate increases we've done, and I'm sorry I'm checking my phone. I'm getting text message from the police chief, and there's a situation going on that doesn't impact anybody but here in this room, but it impacts city employees. There's someone who fell off a ladder, so I'm just getting updates on that. I'm trying not to be disrespectful, but it's important information. Tell me your question again.
What is the need to increase the rates?
So the prior rate increases, right? Over the last 3 years, we've spent a little over $200 million on securing water supplies. So we purchase water in PK. In fact, we'll be having another item on the council agenda to confirm some of that activity. We built a new treatment plant in Breckenridge to polish the water. The water out of Possum Kingdom Lake has a really high turbidity level, which just means that you're not going to be able to drink it, right? And so it's got to go through advanced treatment before it can get traditionally treated, so it's drinkable water and our quality of water. So that was some of the cost. The Hamby wastewater plant was $94 million, I think, or something along those lines. It was almost half of it. And the Hamby plant is an advanced wastewater treatment plant. So what we basically do is we consume water out of our faucets or pitcher water, whatever, we use it, we vacate it, we flush it down the toilet, it goes to the wastewater system, it goes through the advanced treatment process of the Hamby plant, and then it gets discharged in Lake Fort Phantom Hill, where it's then treated again as potable water. And so it's called indirect retreatment of water, indirect reuse of water. Wichita Falls, when they're in the same drought we were, they went with the direct reuse, which is very rare in the state of Texas. Indirect reuse is rare, but direct reuse is very rare because of the public perception of from your toilet to your sink, right? And I agree, it's perfectly fine. It's not going to hurt anybody, but at the same time, there's a mental perception with it. We've expanded the Hagersheimer plant, right, for increased capacity to treat more water out of Ivy. Now, Ivy's got to catch some rain before we can use it, obviously, but that plant has been expanded. That plant is also receiving some additional improvements to help deal with the manganese issue, right? So the press has done a good job of reporting whenever someone pours a glass of water and it looks like something they don't want to drink, right? Part of that's just a mineral deposit in the lakes from Ivy, and we're making some changes to the Hagersheimer plant on how we treat that water to help better control that. I can't promise it's going to go away completely, but it will better control some of that. That has been the majority of the rate increase. Now, and it's all been tied to infrastructure, right? Making sure that when you turn your tap on, we have water. And I'll put the sense of urgency in this. When I first arrived, one of the first briefings I got from the water department was we have 30 to 45 days left before we have to turn off the spigot from Lake Breckenridge, which is a huge part of our water supply. Is it Breckenridge, Tommy? Am I saying that right? Lake Hubbard Creek, thank you. It's near Breckenridge, that's what is in my head. But Lake Hubbard, that's a huge part of our water supply, so we lose one of our reservoirs. Phantom Hill didn't have a whole lot of water in it, and Ivy was pretty low too. So the drought was real. Our ability to provide water to citizens when they turned the faucet on, that was a real concern. That's why council made the decision we need to make sure we have water, and they did all these short-term improvements.
Robert, I've got some notes here from the 30th of May, 2015, which is roughly 15 months ago, from another project I was working on. And I had recorded the lake levels for that project on the 30th of May, 2015. Fort Phantom Reservoir was 40.7% full, which was better than it had been in a year. Hubbard was 21 feet below the spillway, and as Robert says, we were 30 days from being kicked out of it. It had already passed the limit that kicked us out, but that had to stand for 30 days. And after that limit was passed and 30 days had gone by, if it hadn't come up, we were going to be out of Hubbard. We got lucky. It started raining, and it came up. Ivy was 43 feet below the spillway, and now that was less than a year and a half ago. So the drought has not been that long ago. We had good rains last year, but if you'll recall, they didn't really fill our lakes. It was this year that filled our lakes.
There's also a tier system in the Lake Ivy piece too, and then another tier system in the residential sewer. So we actually have 3 tier systems that we can jump up into besides usage.
Rod, can you want to address that comment?
Yeah, there's not a tier system for Ivy. Just to clarify, that's across the board for any water consumed by any customer class. So that's as fair as it can get. There is a tier system for residential use. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. It's the first 8 or 10,000 gallons is billed at a set rate. Anything above that is not billed. It's for residential use.
But still, how does water usage benefit the poorer community or the elderly when water should just be the same price for everybody?
Well,
You're billed on what you use, and then you use a lot more, you pay more.
I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense from your perspective, and I'm not arguing that. The deal is that we have regulating agencies within the state of Texas, and then we have other agencies that are established under them, and that's the Water Development Board is one of those. The Water Development Board requires all water providers to do certain things, and that includes doing regional planning for, say, the Brazos River Basin, which we're a member of how we're going to strategically use the water we have and plan for the future so that everybody in our basin has water for the future. Part of that strategy is making sure that we have conservation measures in place so that that we do have that future supply. The Texas Water Development Board recommends that we have rate structures in place that encourage conservation of water. And a tiered system is what they recommend. If we go to borrow money to do projects or whatever, they're going to require us to have certain measures in place. And one of those is a tiered structure. The thing that we're fussing about here tonight, we'll be required to have that to be able to qualify to borrow money through the Texas Water Development Board and all the funds that the state of Texas and the federal government have set aside for municipalities to make infrastructure improvements. So realistically, we can discuss these points and council can make decisions. The reality is that as we move forward and have to borrow money to do projects in the future, we will have to have some type of a tier structure in place to be able to qualify for funding to continue to move forward. So that is the reality of it. We can adjust those. They don't dictate it has to be 6,000. Those are things that we can bring to council, additional information, and we may change that. That'll be up to council to decide how that's structured, but we do have to have those structures in place.
May I please be next? I've been holding this mic a long time. So long I'm going to stand up. My name is Dorothy Lambert, and I would love to address the senior citizens and low-income people of Abilene. I've lived in my home 19 years. 13 years ago, I became a widow. I also have a granddaughter that cannot drink the water. We buy our water. I cook with that. She even cannot bathe in Abilene water. She has 2 genetic mutations. We had to adjust and conserve every dollar that we get. I'm on Social Security and a widow. We do not water our grass. We do not abuse any electricity, gas, or water because we have to live within our means, and we do. I know several senior citizens, my neighbor being one of them, who cannot afford these new increases in water, and neither can I. We didn't get a raise in Social Security, folks, but we still have to eat. We still have to have lights, water, and gas, and we do everything we know to do in order to do that. I've said all of that, and I appreciate you listening to say this. My water meter is on the alley. My house faces one street. My water meter is in an alley that takes me about 7 minutes to get to walk. When I have a water issue or a plumbing issue, I go ask the neighbor to move their car, or I ask the trash can to move the big dumpster that sits on my water meter. I've done it so many times, I haven't checked it lately, but that's part of my issue. In July the 27th, I walked in to pay my water bill. I always pay it at the drop-off box. But I walked in on July the 27th to pay my water bill because I was leaving the next morning to go to Houston for 35 days to help a granddaughter, the sister of the girl that lives with me. I said, I need to pay my bill before I leave because I don't want my water shut off while I'm gone. She pulled up my bill, and it was $20 higher than the previous month. And I went, ooh, what happened? She goes, you must have been watering. And I said, I watered my trees so I could leave, but I didn't water my grass. Okay, I pay the bill, and I leave. I come back September the 1st. I left July the 28th, came back September the 1st. My water bill was in the mail. It was the exact same amount as the month before, and I was gone 35 days. Thank you very much.
So I'd like to visit with you about your account. Yeah. And there are a number of customers that have said stories, and I can't explain. I'd like to see those things. Yeah. No,
Even disregarding people's issues with the rate increase, everybody's gonna have something to say about that, and I understand, you know. I have a daughter, and I'm not, you know, in the highest tier as far as income. I understand people's concerns with the rate increase.
Mhm.
But all of that put aside, if we even put aside everyone's disagreement with how much you're charging for the water, there cannot feasibly be this many citizens all at the same time in the same month having the same issue without there being a single cause for that issue.
appreciate your comments. And
It's just not possible, and
Yeah.
the only explanation that we are hearing from you guys is either what that gentleman heard, which was, no, we were right, or I'd like to visit with you about that. I'd like to visit with you about that. I can't explain this, you know? And that's not, as citizens, what we want to hear from the people that we trust to take care of that for
And
us.
so the reason why I can't go into details is because I'm prohibited by law to talk about customer accounts. So it's not that I don't want to have a good conversation. I just can't.
But nobody has had a single explanation, one, to any of these hundreds of people that are sitting here going, my water bill increased dramatically this month with no changes in my lifestyle. Not a single person have I heard, one, have an explanation from the city for that. Not one. And you know what? We're left here as citizens with one option. Pay our water bill, or option two, don't have water. It's not as if we can protest it and say, oh, I'm not paying this bill, this is wrong. Because if I say that, you know what you're gonna tell me? I'm sorry, we're gonna cut your water off because you didn't pay your bill. So we are completely at your mercy as citizens of the city. We elect officials to be completely at their mercy because we trust you guys to take care of that stuff for us.
I agree.
There's not being any kind of answer provided to us as citizens.
Well, and I guess the answers I've given you are answers that you're not agreeing with. But this is I have a whole press conference on the answers.
I'd like to address this lady's comments. Thank you. In the coming increase, first tier water users, which I'm assuming you'll be in, you were left out. The first tier is not going to be increased, and that's a savings that people in the second and third tier are also going to see. We intentionally did not increase on the first tier rates. Yeah, well, if she's in the first tier, and it definitely sounds like she will be, shouldn't change.
But it shouldn't matter. Let's be honest. If you're in the first tier, second tier, third tier, 80% of the people in this room probably are on the budget.
I think everybody in the room is.
It feels like you're disregarding every comment that's made in this room. And I don't think the people in this room, I don't know if they use 200,000 gallons.
How that man could use it in 1 month, don't know. But here's what you find, and you can go on any website and ask for average household consumption. I don't care what city it is, and I think in your response to me, you said average household usage is 6,000 gallons. When I do my 2 years worth of bills, and there's 2 people in my household, and it averaged a little over 8,000. However, in 60 days, I was charged for 50,000 gallons, which is physically impossible. You can go into, without a leak, it's physically impossible. You can go in and there is a water estimator, and it'll tell you a washing machine uses 40, on an average, 41 gallons of water per load. How much your dishwasher uses, how much a shower uses. I went into that estimator and I did it 3 different times, and I tried to be not conservative, but I actually tried to bump it over what I thought we actually used. When I did that, every time it came in between 7,200 gallons and 8,000 gallons. So it was always right there. And what everybody's saying in here, if our habits don't change and our lifestyle doesn't change, it's an impossible factor. I had to go into that calculator with 34,000 gallons that we supposedly used in August, and we would have been taking 15 showers a day. We would have been running our dishwasher 5 times a day, doing 10 loads of laundry a day, running our sprinkler system every day. All these impossible things that we didn't do and don't do. And so I think what everybody's saying is there's something else. I'm not saying overall, maybe we use that much water. My meter says we did. But I'm like everybody else here. Did we use it in 1 month? It's impossible. So was it estimated and then they played catch up? And I've looked at the history of my bills, and that's what it looks like. I'll have 3,000, 4,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 15,000. Just randomly about every 6 months, I spike and go through the roof. That looks very much like we did the average, whoops, we read it, she's using a little more. That's what it looks like, and I think that's why everyone's frustrated.
Yeah, and I sense your frustration, and the only thing I can tell you is that, and I don't get paid extra, right? If the city doesn't owe credits, I get paid the same whether we find problems or not. I would love to be able to find evidence that somewhere along the line some employee messed up big time, right? I just haven't found that. I'm being honest with you when I say I haven't found that. And it's in my interest to be able to find it. I don't enjoy spending time in front of y'all getting yelled at. And y'all don't like hearing it either.
It's stated in the media that there's been over 2,000 complaints this month. And I know some people that, my water bill was about $200 more than normal.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people whose were $400 and $500 and $600 more than normal. But if you take 2,000 complaints and just average 200, that's $400,000. The city ought to be saying, wow, where'd we get all the surplus? That's a lot of money. And here may have come in somebody and heard, that's grocery money, and that's car payment money, and some people
Understood.
house payment.
Wouldn't y'all be saying something about stopping using the water if that's so much water being used?
Yeah, so let me ask that. Let me answer kind of where your point is on that, okay? Because it's a great point. Is where the hell is all the water going then, right? Okay, so and this is the reason why I say I haven't seen evidence that somehow some employees out there doing.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Because that was my question: is
Yeah.
what evidence would you see that led you to believe that it had been read or hasn't been read? That's been my question all along, because I believe that there was some kind of correction, in my opinion, that there was. Then we had a big correction.
It's a good question.
And you said there's no evidence, you can't find it. What evidence would it be that give you a chance to talk about that?
So, and I appreciate that, and that's kind of. I think this is going to answer your question. If not, I'll try it again. But if we had a big estimation, right, we wouldn't have seen our actual production in water increase, right? The amount of water we produce, it doesn't do anything for the city of Abilene just to produce more water for the heck of producing more water, because it doesn't cost the same. I don't remember which person said that, but it doesn't cost the same. We have different sources of water, and each of those different sources of water have different costs associated with the production value. If the city of Abilene was just estimating the numbers, our production numbers wouldn't be where they were. And if you saw the press comments, you would see that our production was increasing because demand was increasing, right? The consumption was increasing with the system. Now, where the water went, I don't know, but I know that the demand is increasing, therefore the production increased. If we were just estimating this, every water tower in Abilene would have water coming out the top of it like Spindletop. We don't have enough storage capacity to store all the water we were producing on a daily basis. And that's why I haven't seen the evidence. Everything that I've seen from the data that I have, right, is that production went up to meet the demand increases because consumption had gone up. I don't disbelieve anything y'all have said, right? I don't. I would desperately love to be able to find an answer on why this is taking place. I just can't connect the dots. The data doesn't show that. I'm going to go back and look at things. Absolutely, we're going to make sure we're right. When we think we're right, we're going to check all our math. Make sure we haven't made mistakes. I haven't seen it yet, and it's fresh. It's equally as frustrating for me as it is for y'all.
How many meter readers do you have?
We have 6 meter readers and a meter reader supervisor.
And they each, you have about 40,000 homes?
So they do anywhere from 500 to 700 meters a day per meter reader. That's what they average. Yes, they'll get about. The gentleman we followed did 250 something meters before lunch, and I mean I watched him. He didn't just speed through it. Literally, he removed the lid, looked at it. Yeah. Yes, that's true. He knew we were following him,
Yes.
and I've got to trust the fact that my people aren't going to be lying. Yeah.
In those consumption reports I just want to know where you're accounting for, because I live on Sales, Mr. Cooper, and I can tell you in probably the last 3 or 4 months, at least 2 or 3 times I've had to drive through a massive puddle when there's been no rain because
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
And that happens all over town.
Sure.
You know, it's going to happen. In a city this size, it's going to happen quite a bit, I'm
Right.
sure. But where in your consumption reports are you accounting for these erroneous water leaks that are all over town? And are you factoring that in
Yes.
to these consumption reports that are somehow showing that your citizens are using outrageous amounts of water for absolutely no justifiable reason in August?
Well, we can disagree on that point, but yes, we take into consideration it's called lost water. We take into consideration lost water. No, we all do. We all do.
Okay, so if there's a main that bursts in the city, okay, and you've got to send people out to fix it,
Mhm.
who pays the price for that? Do you spread that out
No.
to
Well,
everybody else?
when I say we all do, the money we collect off the water system bills, off of the water that's consumed, that pays that cost. We don't up the amount of water consumption that people use to make up for that, right? So we don't go out and add to people's bills. But the revenue that's generated off that goes to system maintenance. That goes to pay for that sort of stuff.
It's padded.
No, it's not padded.
Is it padded for that
No,
kind of stuff?
absolutely not.
Accidents
Nope.
or things that just happen?
It's not padded. The only
So how do you pull that money out?
They're operating a business. That makes perfect sense. I mean, they collect, they put it in, that pays salaries, it pays to maintain the system, it pays for things that happen.
Right.
The way any business would operate.
correct.
But hold on, you're saying you just said you don't pad and you don't prepare. Am I understanding? When you don't pad, so you're not preparing if there's a main that breaks.
We don't inflate people's consumption numbers if that's where that's heading. Yeah. Okay.
How do you account for the loss of water?
Rod, can you help explain the water loss problem, the concern, and how we account for that?
Yeah. Again, we are required each year to do a water loss audit. That's required in the TCQ rules. We have meter readings from we put into our system. We have billed consumption, which is your meters, our industries and commercial meters, that all are added up. And there is what we call unaccounted for water. We have numerous leaks a year. We estimate loss on those leaks. We flush water. You know, we have to flush water to maintain our system. It's required in the regulations. So that when somebody has brown water at their house, we go and flush a main. That's water that's not metered that we have to somehow account for. When we do all of that adding up, there's still a percentage of water that is unaccounted for water. We don't know where it went. The deal is that we've got hundreds of miles of pipe in our system that are all underground. And there's going to be seeps and leaks and things like that that we really can't quantify. So there is really a pocket of water there that is unaccounted for water, and we report that to the state each year. The deal is that all of that water has a cost associated with it. Okay? And so we rake in revenue from residential, industrial, our wholesale customers, and all of that revenue goes into our fund, And in that fund, we pay for everything, including the water that we treat that ends up in your tap and the water that we treat that we don't know where it went. The costs associated with that, it took chemicals, it took electricity, it took labor. All of those costs had to be accounted for and they had to be paid for. We have to pay our own way. And so do you pay for that through your meter? Do we inflate your meter? Your meter reads what your meter reads. And everything that we believe in is that if the meter says you used 1,000 gallons or it says you used 10,000, we believe that because the technology that's out there in place, it's the same technology that's throughout the country. It's proven technology. It's been around for a long time. And that's the deal, is that we get into an issue of whether you used 10,000 or you didn't. We don't really know, but we trust that that meter is accurate. And they have a piece of equipment that requires a manual entry. It is not an automated read over a radio wave or whatever.
The ones that's making the mistake. If
Well,
they're doing it manually with their hand instead of using it electronically, they're making a mistake. I'm here with this lady here saying that that y'all are not doing the right thing. Y'all are not doing the right thing when you're not reading these meters. My meter has not been, I have not used the same amount of water each month. But my bills, it's continually going up. That's not right. It is not godly right for people to do that to a community or a town just to say that this is the way it's going to be. Because you have us all between a rock and a hard place. We all need our water.
I truly do hear and understand what you're saying. What I would truly encourage each of you that have a question about whether that meter's been read is there is a reading on your bill that says what your prior consumption was and your current consumption was. That number that's on your bill should be very close with that number on your meter in the box. And if it's not, then please let us know, because there's a problem.
We've letting you know it today because it's not accurate. What I'm saying is, how did 30 days, 2 months I used 23, the next month I used 22, and then when it comes time for me to read it, I went out there and read it, and I only used 8. So where's the difference? That's 3 times. That's 3 times. You're saying that I've used 3 times from what I actually use. And that's not right, sir. I'm telling all of y'all, it is not right. Y'all might as well stand up and say that the people have made a mistake. These meter readers are not reading accurately, and it's not right. And God is going to show it. He's going to show it that it's not right.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, ma'am, and I appreciate your comments. Sir, you've had your hand raised a long time.
No, she was
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I didn't see you. Yeah.
I spoke last time, and so I was hesitant to say anything today. First off, I would not want to be a meter reader. I would not want to walk the alleys with all the weather conditions out there. I have witnessed the meter reader in my alley, and my hat's off to those folks, and I hate that they're getting bad reputations or people discussing them. And because I have been interviewed on television, many friends and relatives have talked to me, and I try to repeat everything, sir, that you gave us information. I'm trying to represent you accurately.
Appreciate that.
And I want to be fair. I am not trying to get attention at all. But no one lives in the home 5 months out of the last 12, the zero consumption. Zero consumption. And then 100,000 gallons in 1 month. And the plumber, same plumber the other folks used, came to my home, spent an entire day and was doing everything he could to find a leak. He's been a plumber for 25 years. I wanted to know, where's my leak? I expected to have a leak. So I'm just here saying that many of these folks that I've talked to, and you said for me to tell those people to call you, identify themselves, they're hesitant to do that, but they're extremely unhappy. And one gentleman, I was finished with this, told me he and his wife on a certain day of the month have $5 remaining in their checking account, $6 in their savings account. They cannot afford a rate increase. They're one of the 192 that did receive a refund of $10. And I did receive an adjustment from the city very graciously for $575. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Okay, I believe this gentleman was next.
Yeah, my name is Bob Galenak, and I've had a discrepancy in my bill, but I'm here to kind of summarize. People are habitual. We use the same water every day. Just because Norm says go out and water 3 times, we don't leave the spigot running. And I think the other thing about human nature is they have to have somebody to blame, okay? It's not my fault. And we just don't believe what the city is dishing us when there are so many of us. That's the cause of the problem. There is nowhere else to turn except to come back to the city. The city hires consultants for everything from studying potholes to Lord knows what at outrageous sums of money. But we can't do this here, or the city refuses to. Just because you don't find a problem does not mean one does not exist. So that's where we are. And I see it being an impasse. You're not going to sit down, you may sit down with everybody that has a problem, but that's not going to solve the problem. There's too many of us with common ground, and it's going to be hard for human nature to believe that there's nothing wrong.
I don't disagree with that analysis at all.
That's what I see as a summation to this whole thing, and that's what I've been hearing. There are plenty of misread meters. Mine went up 3 times. And guess what? It's back down to $9,000 a month this month. How does that happen? I don't know is what you're telling me. So, amen. Thank you for putting up with us.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Whatever the problem is, y'all need to find it.
Okay.
Whatever it takes, you need to find
I appreciate your comment.
This lady over here has been.
Danette, we got several people over here.
In an 8-hour day, there's 480 minutes. So they're averaging faster than a meter a minute.
Absolutely they are. Yep.
Walking between houses?
Yep, absolutely. The
Okay.
meter we were carrying was about 9 seconds a meter. Is that right? 9 to 10?
It was fast.
Wow.
Some of them were
Okay.
quicker than that.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, and we've got the meter supervisor here. He can confirm all that.
Yeah, and actually, I'd kind of like to hear from him. Because
Sure.
And thank the lady over here for gracious comments about the meter readers. The meter readers, probably more than any other group in this, are getting dumped on, and I think unfairly. And I'd like to hear from them in a minute.
Can we get the question from the lady behind George, and then let George talk a little bit?
So are the meter readers reading on Sunday and Saturday and Sunday as well?
They're not. However, I was informed this weekend that the meter technicians were actually helping with the rereads, and some of that was done this weekend. Yep.
What about the bills that are being billed for being read on a Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, and that was what this. I think Ms. Allen's comment is the date that you may have received as part of your consumption histories was not your actual meter read date. Yeah, we can get you that read date. It's just it's in a different system.
Saying a little while ago that Abilene produces X amount of water and Abilene uses X amount of water. You said that this last month Abilene produced a whole lot more water to coincide with the fact that we were all double and triple billed. Can you know for sure that Abilene produced last month? Do you have reporting that Abilene water system produced over double the water that they normally produce?
So
Over double?
What I have, we get weekly production reports, and production went up. As the rain didn't come, production continued to go up. As the rain came, production came down. And so this last week, production was down from what it was in the past, the high. We got a lot of rain, you know? And now, so yes, we have reports that show how much water was produced, and when consumption is up, production goes up. When consumption is down, it goes down. Sure, because your billing is based on your consumption.
Didn't we have a record month for production or close to it?
We had 34.5 million gallons a day used in August, one point in time. That was not the whole month. That was our peak day. Yeah, yeah, average about 30 gallons a day, 30 million gallons a day.
21 all year round.
And we opened a new splash pad in August, is that right?
It wouldn't have used nearly that much water. I mean, not even close to it.
But it's the first month that it was open.
It just wouldn't have used anywhere near that amount of water.
Here's the frustration, and I'm just going to be honest with you.
Sure.
Okay? And I think that most of the people in this room would agree. When we present, maybe this, we're trying to help you. We're not trying to say, you're wrong here. I want to be honest. That's not what we're trying to do. We want to help resolve the issue, and it feels like every time maybe it's this, and it's no, it couldn't be that. It's like that's not even an option. And I've seen those splash pads, and I understand the water is recycled. I understand that. But they do use water. Water evaporates. Water is splashed to the side. Cups are filled up and dumped. I hope kids don't drink it, but some of them do. And that is money that, as citizens, we pay for that. And that, I know that goes, there's just no way that couldn't be part of it. Was there not a huge water main that broke in August, or was that July? That we had a big one break?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion about that. Rod, can you talk a little bit about that main break that was there was a main break that happened. It was on the way to the line to the prison. And I'm assuming that's the line people are talking about, because we had a line break that was big, and we lost some water. And we had to call, in the middle of the night, we had to call the construction crew out to find. But this wasn't this summer. This was like several months ago.
There was one during the summer that we got a notification from the media, please consume water.
Oh, it's the one on Buffalo Gap. Okay, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I believe the one you're talking about is the raw water pipeline, where we actually went to the public and said, can you help us conserve water? Yes, that was a pretty significant leak, and there was several million gallons of water that leaked out of there. You got to remember the size of the city of Abilene. We talk normally in millions of gallons per day. So when you're talking about 1,000 gallons in your home is a lot of water, well, 30 million gallons a day in our system is a lot of water. When you compare between normal usage and what a peak day is, which was the topic just a second ago, we increased our daily production by 10 million gallons per day. Okay? And so that's what we would normally expect to see coming out of the spring, rainy season, or whatever. When the summertime got hot, we were producing 10 million gallons a day more water. That was measured in the raw water system. That was measured in our treated water system. And then when we look at our meter totals for August, it's reflected in the individual meter accounts as well. Well, there is a difference. There's a loss in there, again, from leaks and things like that. But not only did these raw and treated water, but also that if you just add up all of the customer meters, and it's done automatically and regularly every month, that also increased proportionally to the other meters. And that's where we're saying that we're not just making an assumption that we pump more from the plant, therefore y'all used more. The sum of all of the meters for the city actually showed that same level of increase. And that's why we're banking on. We're certain that that water was consumed by individuals. And I guess the argument is individually did certain customers really use what the meter said they did. And I think that's really the point of contention right now.
Well, that, and also I'll say again, and my home flooded last summer. We're raising rates. We're discouraging people from using water by raising the rates because it hits us where it hurts. Our lakes are full. What I would ask of the city is, and I sat down, like I said, with Mr. Rice, let's find some ways to get some reservation pools where this water just doesn't run in the street, and when the creeks are full, that it sits in the street and eventually evaporates or whatever. But why we've got to look, if we're wanting to conserve, I don't see that we're actively looking for options to find places to build things like Kirby Lake, or I know nothing the size of Lake Abilene, but ponds and retaining areas to keep homes from flooding when things like this happen, and to also conserve water. To me, as a citizen, that if we're going to pay for a study on cleaning out a creek, why aren't we paying for a study on where can we look for options to build these?
And I think that's what that study is going to be used for. It's not cleaning out a creek. It's trying to understand the hydrology of Abilene's creek systems so that we can make better and more intelligent decisions on how we manage our stormwater flows. It's not about how many twigs we can pull out of the creek, how many dead trees we can pull out.
That's not the way it was explained to me.
Well,
Maybe I misunderstood, but
I'm not sure.
and the other thing I would ask is, I do not see our creeks being cleaned out, and I do know that our citizens paid for $1 million piece of equipment. In my opinion, should be being used every day of the week to protect our citizens if we have that available. That's foolish for us not to do it, and we're paying for it every
Red.
week on our
Appreciate your comment.
Let's go ahead and hear from the meter readers.
Sure. George? George, what I'd like for you to do is talk about the day in the life of a meter reader. You guys wake up in the morning, you come to work. What does your work look like? What's your average read schedule? How many meters do you get through in a day? What the process do you use to do that, if you mind? Yeah.
Well, the meter readers, when they first get in the morning and stuff, every one of them have a route in each one of their handhelds. And that's what they read in the morning. That's what they're expected to get read every morning. A lot of y'all don't think they read the routes and stuff. When I first started here, it was hard for me to read a full route. At the end of the first year, my wife was telling me to slow down every time we went somewhere because my normal pace was so fast that she had to almost run to keep up with me. That's how all these meter readers are now. People say they don't see them reading. That's right. You have to be watching for them because they are working fast to go down the alleys because most routes, an average route around out past the mall, 141 meters, it'll take them 2.5 hours to read that route because the houses are so big. But then on the north side, a route with 290 meters, they can read it in the same amount of time because of the amount of routes. And this is just in the morning. They'll read 290 to 300 meters in the morning. After lunch, they get to do that again before they go home. So they're reading an average of 300 to 700 meters. And to them, it's easy because they've been doing it so long. I mean, they do read every meter in town. If they can't get to them, of course, it's like they said, we have to write them up if we can't get to them. And there's a lot of different reasons we can't get to them, stuff on top of the meters, and brush. We come across mattresses, couches and stuff like that on top of meters. We can't get to them. They don't have time to stop and pull that stuff off. They've got 290 meters to read before the end of the day or before lunch.
So what happens to that person's bill that you can't read their meter?
When we trouble code it, we trouble code that we can't get to it. If it's covered, then we trouble code that it's covered and put a 0 reading in it. And when we upload that into the billing system, then that's when the billing system does an estimate if they can't get to it. If service can't get out there and move whatever's on that meter and get a read for them.
What happens on your handheld device?
Can you vouch, excuse me, my name is Leonard Davis, but can you vouch that every person that works with you, reader, is actually
Every meter that works in my department are expected to read every meter.
Expected. I said, can you vouch? You said they are actually.
As far as I'm vouching for all of them because they're supposed to be reading meters. I'm not babysitting. I can't be with all 6 of my meter readers at the same time.
That's why I asked the question. Basically, you cannot say they are actually reading. All of them are actually reading.
Exactly. But as their supervisor, I'm saying that they're reading the meters. If they're not, then there's no way I can prove they're not because they're supposed to be reading the meters. Period.
Because the reason I bring this up, George, because me and a few of my neighbors, we can actually vouch. When I got my water bill, we went up there and checked. The cover had not been removed. I said, now how can he tell me that my water bill is this? How can he predict my water bill? That's what I'm saying. You can only hope that they're actually reading the meter.
Right.
I listened to the city manager.
Right.
He said that he has not found any evidence, anything. My thing is when I come and see you, and the rest of us come, are you going to be available or are you going to tell us the same thing like the guy that just left? We're at impasse. Y'all don't know what the problem is. It's like we don't even exist. Like we're imagining things. You're talking about water consumption. The projects that all the money, the funding that we are doing, to improve our water department and all. But what about the problem? The meters are not getting read. I know for a fact 4 of them in my neighborhood that has not been read. And so what we're going to do about that? You cannot follow everybody around. You say you have some with 100 meters. Everybody do not read like you. If it's raining, they don't feel like it. They might have a cold. They might be tired. Everybody might not have the sincereness as you.
Mr. Hannah, I know several people that got to get home, take care of kids, and eat. We do have a question for you regarding some responses.
Thank you, George.
I don't see him here, but one of my main concerns to the whole thing is that this has been going on since September 1st, and the first email I sent out was on September 1st, and I sent it to the entire city council, and I got several responses back, which I appreciated, and one of the more concerning ones was the one I got back from Councilman Anthony Williams, who simply wrote back, "There was a glitch, we're working on it, I'll get back with you."
So let me
I
tell you how that
replied to
happened.
him and asked for a response. I still haven't gotten a response from him, and I've had absolutely nobody explain to me what that response even meant.
So I can't tell you why Anthony has or hasn't responded. That's not my job. But I will tell you why he was under the false impression there was a glitch. I happened to be in the Fort Davis Mountains when he called me, and this whole thing was going on, and I was getting reports from my staff members. Cell phone, anybody who's ever been to the Fort Davis State Park knows that unless you're at the little grocery store outside the park, you don't get a lot of cell service. Okay, so I was driving back, and Anthony was talking to me, and he just misunderstood me, right? The glitch that we found was that, yes, some meters were estimated. Some citizens' bills were impacted by the estimation. 194, I think, if I remember the number correctly. That's where he got that, and he and I didn't talk until that email went out. And I said, whoa, time out, Anthony, what are you saying here? And he said, I thought I heard you say that. I said, no, sir, that's not what I said. So that was a miscommunication, and I'm going to blame it on this lovely device in my pocket. But that's why he said that. And why he hasn't responded yet, you'd have to ask him that.
Okay. Just for the record, I have asked multiple people to respond to that. That's the first response I've ever gotten to that email from you, the city, anybody. And I know I was not the only one that got that email. So
Understood.
I think a lot of this has been a big miscommunication, and maybe some of it was stemmed from that email. But there's still some concerning issues that I don't think anybody has answers to.
I hear what y'all are saying. I want to make this, I know people are trying to kind of winding down from just a patient standpoint. I hear what you're saying. If I find evidence that one of my employees did something they shouldn't have done, they're going to be fired. I don't have any patience for that crap, right? Because this involves, at the bottom line, this involves public trust. And that is what is being, that's the ultimate thing that's lost here, is public trust. Now, I'm sorry you don't believe what I'm saying, right? But I'm telling you the facts that as I've seen them. And you're either going to believe me or you're not. We're going to continue to look at this stuff. If we see something that indicates something was wrong, we're going to fix it. And I'll be the first one to call K-Texas in and say, I need to have a press conference because we screwed the pooch, right? I just haven't found it yet. Sir, this is the first time I saw your hand up.
I just want to to throw something in here, if you people would take your last bill and see what your meter reading was, the current reading, and then check and see what it's saying now. I've done that. In 11 days, I used 2,000 gallons of water. The previous month, I used 40,000 gallons of water in 30 days. The month before that, I used 5,000 gallons. Now, then the meter readings are all in sequence. And so I can't explain it either. But I didn't use 40,000 gallons of water in 1 month, 2 of us. And one of those weeks, we were away. So it's hard to explain, but start reading your meter every day if you have to, and write it down what it is every day. Now then, during all this time, we had lots of rain, and I did not run my sprinklers. Even when you said you can do it 3 times a week, I only did it 1 time a week because that's all that was necessary. And so, but I'm going to start reading my meter almost every day. Now, when you open it up, I can't open it up and read it in 8 seconds.
And
it takes me longer than that to raise that little door that's on there.
And then I can't either.
I have to turn around and look at it crooked because it's almost upside down. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure the meter readers get used to reading those things, and they can read them like that. But read your meter every day and see what's happening.
Shoot, I couldn't remember the numbers on there long enough to put them in without having to look again.
One other thing. How do I know that when the guy's got the little device in his hand that he's reading my meter?
It's a good question. I'm going to turn
to
George.
They don't have numbers on them. Our electric meter's got a number on it.
Right.
These
George,
meters don't have numbers.
That's a great question. Could you address that?
Yeah.
Your meter does have an ID on it. Underneath the lid, there will be a stamp print. It'll say AW in front of it, and then a number behind it. That's actually your meter number. It'll be stamped under the lid, or it'll be stamped down on the casing of the meter.
Confirms that number is what
yes.
Yeah, it doesn't
when he
come
reads
up.
that number, it'll be in the handheld. It'll have your meter number and your name on that account and what the read was.
Yeah, he doesn't have to input that meter number. That shows up on his machine.
Yeah, it shows up automatically on my handheld.
Okay.
And see, that's how we know our routes.
Let's take one more question. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Donnie Massey, and I've been here since '89. And this problem with the reading of the meters or the accuracy of the accuracy of the water bill. I have a letter here from the city far back as 2010 where they had to do some adjustments. I had talked to some people in your office and I was feeling pretty good, but after watching your news conference, I emailed a person back and I said the city manager took up for the water people and you gave me false hope. And so what I did was I went back to your briefing before I came down here, and you seem to have all these fail-safes built in. And I think that one of the ladies addressed it too. They asked about the meter. I got really involved in it when I heard about the $700 bill, the $600 bill, the $500 bill. But since I've been here, the lady is gone now. She said that she had a 100,000-gallon reading, and the gentleman over here said that 190,000 gallons, and somebody said 50, somebody said 40. I understand the legal aspect of it about you not being able to discuss bills, but how do you explain that a bill, somebody has a bill with 190,000, 100,000, and 50,000? How do you explain that? Here's the supervisor. I wrote a quote that you said happens. It says the handheld unit alerts the meter reader if the consumption entered is outside of an expected range. The meter reader must confirm the entry for a high or low reading. And so to the supervisor, if somebody has been having a reading for maybe 8,000 or 9,000, let's put it in tier 3, 17,000. If you personally read a meter and that person has gone to 190,000 gallons
Well, the guy that's reading the route, if he comes up to a meter and he punches it in and it reads a high consumption.
No, I'm talking about you.
Me?
You make it perfect. You read the meters too, right?
I read meters too, but I mean, if I'm not reading that route and I don't get that meter, then I don't know that it beeped high.
I'm saying you. If you are confronted with that as a supervisor, what would you do?
If it was me, then I would go to my supervisor and let her know about it. And then she's billing, and so then they would investigate it.
Okay, so these people who, with the 190,000, 100,000, do you have record where you went to the supervisor prior to billing them this exorbitant amount?
Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Priscilla Rayford. I am the manager for the Water Utility Office. And those nice ladies that you call and talk to when you have a problem with your bill, they're under my supervision along with the meter readers. When a meter reader is out in the field and they run across a abnormal consumption, that's kind of what we call it in the office. It falls outside of an expected range, and that range is determined by formula for each individual account. So what your expected consumption might be different from someone else's. So it's very individual. If they come across that, they are supposed to reread the meter, make sure they're at the right location by meter number, reread the meter, and confirm that they have entered the right number. As in your case, someone messed up and they didn't read it. Maybe they really thought they saw that number and they punched it in again. And so it's possible for the meter readers to make a mistake. I don't hear about every single abnormal consumption, especially as we roll into the summer because people turn on their sprinkler systems and they're using more water. However, I do hear about some that are way, way off, especially if they normally use 5 or 10,000 gallons, and now they get a huge bill. I have a lady that does the billing, and when she sees one like that, she'll tell me about it, but she also asks George, or maybe she'll put in a service order to have them go back out and read the meter. If the read is correct, we don't make any assumptions that anything else is wrong except that we've read the meter properly. If it's incorrect, we try to adjust that bill before it goes out because we don't want y'all to go into stroke zone when you see a bill for hundreds or $1,000 more than what you expect. It's not a foolproof system. Nothing is. Sure. Sometimes, especially if we get a code, when they reread it and it's correct and the meter isn't running, we may or may not call. If it is running, we do try to call. Unfortunately, a lot of the phone numbers that we have are out of date. People have gone into cell phones and their home phone number doesn't work. So we try to, but if we can't get in touch with them, we can't.
I have a story to address just that. And let me make this comment, ma'am, and then I'll go back to you. I had lunch with a group of businessmen today, and this topic, it's a topic that I'm sure a lot of people talk about at lunch. And so they were talking about me, and it happened to be my neighbor. And he came up after the meeting and said, and you're not going to believe me when I tell this story, but I'm telling anyways. My neighbor came up to me and said, your billing department called me and said, sir, you must have a leak because your bill is a lot higher than it was in the past. And he called a plumber, and sure enough, he had a leak. Now, that was one customer, right? And I'm not using that to judge everybody else's actions here. That was just one individual account, and I believe everybody's testimony tonight, okay? So don't take that as me dismissing you. I'm not. I'm really concerned about what I'm hearing. But in that instance case, we actually did call the guy.
I think that's great because a lot of people sometimes don't know, and I had a problem with a tenant who is a disabled vet, and there was a leak out in his yard, which he never goes out in his backyard, and they took care of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to go through a lot of meetings and stuff to get that. When we finally got, I said, something's wrong with this bill.
understand.
You know, and so it's really, it's coming down from everywhere. It's coming from everywhere. And and families are struggling. They're struggling.
Understand.
I don't know the additional, or you,
We need to wind this up. We've been at it nearly 2 hours.
I'll talk to you individually when everybody's gone.
Okay, that's great. I want to thank I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to make a point about this. As you can see, there wasn't anything here for staff or myself to win tonight, and we knew that. We know people are unhappy. We hear that. We wish there was something that we fixed it and move on to other things. But so many of you have reached out and you wanted to discuss this, and you should be able to discuss it and air your complaints. And so we arranged this, and I thank y'all for coming, and I thank the staff for being here.
one more thing is that when I have a customer who has a problem, I investigate the problem. I investigate until I find what the problem is.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think that's really what everybody wants to know.
Yes.
They want to know that you're going to investigate it and you're going to find what the problem is.
Yes, our water department has been thoroughly looked at and will be, and that will continue.
When is the next city council meeting?
Thursday.
This Thursday, what time?
8:30.
In the morning. And are the water rates going to be discussed at that council meeting?
No, there won't be. If you want, and the way state law works is councils can't talk whatever they want to. It's got to have an agenda, so we post this advertising in advance. So on September 27th,